Greetings, brothers and sisters. So continuing from my video last night or yesterday or this morning, based on how you want to look at it. I made it yesterday, but it was released this morning. And I don't know when this video will be made public as well, so there's no way to quantify. But my previous video to this one, where I talked about how lying is something that feeds the beast, feeds the system. But the truth is a danger to the beast. It is the beast's kryptonite, and it would collapse the system. That's why liars and the lies that they tell are supported. The liars aren't punished. The liars aren't, consequenced. But people who tell the truth are. People who tell the truth are condemned and deplatformed and silenced, where liars are promoted. And that is, not a good sign for your system. That's when your system is close to the end. When the lies are celebrated, as are the liars that tell them, but people who tell the truth are villains. Because the truth will take down the system. The truth will set you free, as they say. Free to eat out of a garbage can. And so, to start off with, JoJo Magoo got fact-checked by CNN, which is something new. Let's go to that.
Well, so President Biden was speaking yesterday to Jewish leaders in advance of Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year, and he was talking about the evils of anti-Semitism. Let me play the comment that President Biden made before we get into the response. Take a listen.
I remember spending time at going to the Tree of Life synagogue, speaking with them. It just is amazing these things are happening in America.
So the problem is, as he said, President Biden did not actually visit this synagogue. The executive director of the synagogue told the New York Post that this just didn't happen.
So he lied, and that would make him a what? What would he be then? If someone who lies is a what? Is a liar. Liar, pants on fire. You can say it, bro. Joe Biden, President JoJo Magoo, is a liar.
Now, the White House says President Biden was referring to a phone call he made to the rabbi of the synagogue in 2019. And the rabbi just did issue a statement saying this did happen. President Biden called him to express condolences.
See how his energy just went up there? His energy was kind of low. And said, Biden was, he didn't really happen. He said something happened, but it didn't happen. But then the White House said he was really referring to a phone call. Okay, so are you saying that he's mentally ill? Because that's not what he said. The White House is doubling down and making it worse. They could have said, he just lied. He just made that up. Or he's hallucinating. Dementia. Come on, dementia, right? But instead they say something that's completely false. He wasn't talking about a phone call. He said he went there.
I remember spending time at going to the Tree of Life synagogue.
He said he went there, right? Spent time there. He went there. The Tree of Life synagogues. I guess he went to more than one of them, or none at all. And he had a phone call with a rabbi. Two different things, right? Two entirely different things. You're saying he doesn't know the difference between a phone call and a visit? He actually remembers the place. We was talking on the phone, so that makes it worse. That's them lying even more. And this guy who's reporting this, his energy's up. Why even talk about what the White House said? And if you are, you got to say, hey, and then they're lying too, because that's not what he said. Like, he's not talking about a phone call. So why even bring that up?
Convey support in the fight against anti-Semitism, and this meant a lot to him. Still, Kate, President Biden said he spent time there, he remembered going there, and that, again, is not true.
And that did not happen.
And so he's a liar, right? Just say it. Say it! He's a liar. He told a lie, and then they doubled down and made up a BS story about something about a phone call that had no relevance. I mean, they're fact-checking him, but again, the worst kind of sleaziest way. And then they do this.
You also have another fact check, this one on the House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy and his recent Fox News interview that's just frankly chock full of false statements.
Yeah, it was a 7-minute interview. I counted at least 5 false claims, some of them just kind of detached from reality. He said that.
So Biden was just trying to be supportive, and he was, being supportive of Jewish people, and he was, talking about this stuff, and he just happened to, misspeak a little bit and confuse a phone call with a visit. But Kevin McCarthy, now there's a big time liar because, he's a Republican. And I don't like Kevin McCarthy. I'm not a Republican. I don't vote, right? But this is how CNN rolls, right? They roll out this Joe Biden sort of little fib that he did, and then they have to contrast that with the big liar. And since Trump has sort of disappeared, they don't have Trump anymore. They have to find somebody else that's a bigger liar than Biden, and you got to compare and contrast. And then he says Kevin McCarthy is detached from reality. Are you like some sort of psychological professional? And what he means by that, well, let's play it right here again.
Yeah, it was a 7-minute interview. I counted at least 5 false claims, some of them just kind of detached from reality. He said that.
So by detached from reality, he means not agreeing with the official story, that there's official news and official government, official government presentation. There's the intelligence community, and there's science and medicine and all these things this is the official story. This is what truth is. If you're not agreeing with the establishment, the authoritarian narrative, you're detached from reality, right? And so, Republicans are definitely a part of that, the lie, the deception, but they're a little bit more resistant, and they're getting rolled by the left. And so this is what he means by that.
Oil prices were the highest we've ever seen. Not only were they not even half at the time of their record levels, they were not even at the Trump era peak. They were significantly higher at points in 2018 and 2019. And then there was a comment he made about Afghanistan that again had no basis in fact. Listen to this.
Why aren't they protecting the border from those 5,000 prisoners who have just left out of Afghanistan and have the hope of coming across our borders?
This is imaginary. There is no group of 5,000 Afghan former prisoners who had just left the country and were.
See, this isn't important. I mean, Kevin McCarthy is saying this as a political reason because they don't want to talk about the truth, which is the Republicans and the Democrats lied us into war and failed. What they promised, what they said was supposed to happen, the opposite did, right? The Taliban is better armed and stronger than ever, and now being sort of accepted as a legitimate government because America needs them to get Americans out of the country. And so that's a Republican war that was pushed by Cheney and Bush, that was re-upped by the Obama-Biden administration. There's blood on both parties' hands here, and the lies are, catastrophic.
Trying to get into the United States by crossing the border here. Now, one other important point, Kate, where have we heard that 5,000 number before? Well, Congressman McCarthy didn't mention that it was President Trump's own deal with the Taliban in 2020.
Wait, you just said these 5,000 guys didn't exist, and now you're blaming it on Trump? Like, that isn't true at all. Those guys don't even exist. And by the way, it's Trump's fault. Who's a liar now, MNFer?
This is imaginary. There is no group of 5,000 Afghan former prisoners who had just left the country and were. It was President Trump's own deal with the Taliban in 2020 in which the U.S. agreed to allow 5,000 Afghan prisoners to go free. So false and missing important context.
It's completely false, and it's mixing context that it's Trump's fault, right? This is CNN at its finest. This is false, plus it's Trump's fault, is, starting to point out a couple of Joe Biden's misleading and false statements, as they called it. But they used to count Trump's lies in gumballs. because he's a worse liar, right? That's what they're trying to say here. Biden did lie, but Kevin McCarthy's a worse liar, and the biggest liar of all is Trump. And it doesn't matter. Like, it's once you're a liar and you're a leader, then you're a liar. Especially now when there's a sea of lies around the war and all the rest of it, right? Once somebody's a proven liar, how can you trust them about anything? Especially public liars like politicians. Joe Biden's been a liar for 48 years, a political liar, and he lies about everything. And so you can't say, okay, he's just, he only lies a little bit, right? He's a liar. This is Trump's, this is the way they covered Trump.
9,014 false or misleading claims in his first 773 days in office. 9,014. Now listen, when we started highlighting the...
I don't know what this dude's name is, but for me, he's always the gumball guy. Like, he's actually a little bit more likable than some of the other CNN reporters. I see him from time to time. I think he's usually on the weekend. And again, I'm like, hey, it's the gumball guy. Which is part of it. Maybe he's not even more likable, but, he does this.
The tally of the president's bunk claims on this show more than a year ago, I searched for a way to make something conceptual like a false statement visual. And I landed on a version of a kid's game, guessing the number of gumballs in a jar. And it worked. So
it doesn't work.
Ever since, I've used jars of gumballs to show you this.
Because when I see gumballs, I just get happy, right? Like, I've said this over and over again. It doesn't work because the reason this guy seems more likable is because he's showing us gumballs. Like, when you look at this, I'm like, oh, I want to have a gumball. Why don't I have a gumball? Thanks for the gumball, Mickey. Right?
Here's a penny, Mickey. Thanks for the gumball.
Everybody wants a gumball. Every time I walk through I leave the grocery store, I know the gumball's probably going to hurt my teeth, right? I'm old. It's got cheap, like the worst kind of sugar and whatever. But I would enjoy a gumball, and I enjoy the idea of a gumball. I'm leaving this grocery store. I'm like, hey, there's gumballs over there. No one told me you had gumballs.
Now, up to this point, we just bring the jars down from my office, sit them on a table, show you the latest tally, and that was it. Well, now there are so many jars and so many gumballs that they need their own storage closet. And sitting them...
There's a storage closet in CNN. Where are the gumballs now that Trump isn't there? They took a storage closet in the CNN building. It's full of gumballs, each one representing a Trump lie. And people have been going in there and grabbing gumballs. If I worked at CNN, there'd be like half a jar of gumballs. They'd be like, hey, who's eating the gumballs? Who's eating Trump's lies? Who's eating Trump's lies?
Them side by side on a table isn't going to work anymore. So we now have this.
Look at how proud he is. Look, we've built a shelf for
our 9,014 gumballs. We're filling the 17.
So you want the lies to have, you make the lies into something positive. If each one of these lies is a gumball, and gumballs are universally considered a good thing, then you've made Trump's lies into gumballs, into a positive thing. You've associated something that you enjoyed as a child with Trump's lies. I mean, it's a complete fail. But anyways, they were into counting Trump's lies, back, a couple years ago. But now they're sort of hinting that Joe Biden might have a problem with the truth. But in 2015, they didn't have such a problem talking about JoJo being a liar. They just came out and said it.
Vice President Biden in the key primary state of New Hampshire today.
Much of the country's future will depend on the policies we choose in the next 2, 4, 6 years.
After recent
Biden candidacy questioned amid growing gaffes.
Travels to the early contest states of Iowa and South Carolina. But Biden's latest gaffes are stealing the spotlight away from speculation about his presidential aspirations.
For their trust.
Like his strange hold.
So I've covered this video before, but it's more relevant now, right? They're finally covering Joe Biden's lies now, but back in 2015, they wanted Hillary Clinton. So they were truthful about what kind of a weird slob JoJo Magoo was, what a goofy gaff magnet, snoozler, groper, liar he was. But then in 2019, they forgot all about, what they already knew about JoJo Magoo, right? Because they're picking winners and losers. That's not journalism. You don't, warp the news to pick the candidate you've been told to pick or the candidate that you want or whatever it is, right? And that's what they did for Hillary Clinton, and Joe Biden suffered from it here in 2015. And it's what they did to Trump in 2020 with Joe Biden, 2019 and 20, by protecting Joe Biden and demonizing Trump. That's propaganda. Like, this is a complete condemnation of the news. I mean, CNN particularly, because they all know Joe Biden's a goof, right?
On Defense Secretary Ash Carter's wife, Stephanie, and this claim about Somali immigrants in his hometown of Wilmington, Delaware.
It's a large, very identifiable Somali community. There's an awful lot who are driving cabs, and are friends of mine, for real. I'm not being solicitous.
He says this all the time. He's not being solicitous, but he is, right? Because he's a liar, and it's one of his go-to lines.
Serious.
And it turns out factually incorrect.
He was lying.
Only 15 Somalis live in the entire state, according to the Census Bureau. And Wilmington cab drivers told CNN they knew of no Somalis driving taxis.
So Biden doesn't take cabs, right? He doesn't take cabs in Delaware. He's, vice president, right? This is when he's vice president. He's Secret Service. And before that, he was a powerful senator. And it's Delaware. He said he liked to drive his Corvette. It's Delaware. It's not like New York City where you can't drive around. And if he did, he'd have a private car. He didn't know any Somalian cab drivers because there are none. And he doesn't have any Somalian friends. Sounds very similar to the lie he just told about going to the synagogues that he never went to. It was actually a phone call, but it wasn't a phone call. It was him lying about going to some place that he didn't. And so this is the kind of lie that got Brian Williams fired. Remember, Brian Williams said that he was in Afghanistan and he was in a chopper that was receiving gunfire, and he was never in a chopper, right? He wasn't in the chopper when they were receiving gunfire, and he just, made it up to sound cool. And this is what JoJo Magoo does all the time. And back in 2015, CNN didn't have a problem talking about this.
No one is asked to respond to every time Joe Biden says something, and he says something every day that people should be responding to.
Marco Rubio, who is considering a run for president, and other Republicans are incensed. And on late-night TV, Biden has become a punchline.
Ever heard of a second lady?
The missteps are nothing new. Over the years,
they're nothing new. This guy has been known for lying and being a fool and being a groper. So they knew this in 2015. So think about this. This is important because CNN is supposed to be a news agency, and they are ignoring something that they have proven they know, right? Because of their, hatred for Trump, because of this agenda. So they're no longer a news agency. This is more of a condemnation of them. We all know JoJo Magoo is a liar, but CNN has covered up for him. If you report on something that this has gone on forever, listen to what you just says here.
A second lady.
The missteps are nothing new. Over the years, Biden's become known for them. He's taken criticism for some, like this one, talking to a largely African-American audience about Mitt Romney in 2012.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
But often his handsiness and comments...
No dates to your 30.
So they knew this, right? They knew he was weird with, kids and women, and he was, a snoozler groper. They knew he lied. He, had a scandal. He had a scandal when he first ran for president where he plagiarized speeches and lied, about what his family did, right? Lied about relatives. I mean, this is, think about it, right? They knew all this. and they decided not to bring it up. In fact, they covered for him and made excuses for him when he ran for president in 2020 and even now. Because we all know that he was a historical liar, but also he's showing signs of having dementia. And so did he actually lie? Or did he think he went to synagogues, right? I mean, you know, was he lying about that, or did he just have some sort of hallucination, like he just doesn't remember things? He's not sharp anymore. And so now it's, yeah, he was always a liar, but now he's also delusional. So is he lying or is he just delusional? He thought it was a phone call. He thought he went to a place when it was actually a phone call.
Are likened to those of a crazy but lovable uncle. But as they veer toward the more bizarre variety, it's raising questions about appropriate behavior for someone eyeing the White House. And
it's inappropriate behavior.
With Biden a distant second to Hillary Clinton in polls of Democratic hopefuls, suggestions that Biden isn't a serious contender. Judging by his joke last night at a Black History Month event, maybe even Biden realizes that.
But I'm going to be in that room if anybody wants to photograph. I would not blame you if you didn't.
And so he was only polling 14% against Hillary, who was one of the most unlikable candidates. And she couldn't ever break 50% of people who liked her and supported her. That's why she lost to Trump. And so Joe Biden has never been a serious presidential contender. But they ran out of this whole group, right? They had, you know, the whole Clinton, Obama, I mean, all these sort of, they're all the same sort of Democrats with the same sort of handlers, or the same handlers and the same agenda. And then they had a new batch of potential candidates, and they didn't like any of them. And so they decided to force Joe Biden and do as much as they could in terms of hiding him away and going after Trump and the whole COVID thing to, you know, work Joe Biden in. And they just ignored all of his, you know, poor character qualities, his lying, his being a career politician, his, you know, speaking big and talking tough, but then reversing himself and flip-flopping and all these things. I mean, he's a disaster. But they ignored all of it. This is why I'm saying, you know, a lie is supported, a liar is supported, and the truth is condemned. The truth can take a system down that feeds on deception and lies, and that's what our system does. And the news media that's supposed to be reporting the truth is a, you know, a vehicle. I mean, they report lies and they leave out information. You know, it's all deception. Obscurantism, which I talk about so much from the Whispers of the Brighter World, where the leaders have to tell lies to keep the system going. They have to leave out information because the truth would take down the system. It's just that simple. And so all these people, like all these truthers, who say, no, we got to wake everybody up. Yeah, you're waking them up to a system that no longer exists because it's built on perception. As soon as you aren't, you know, as soon as you don't believe in the system anymore, you understand this. Oh, Trump's a liar. You know, Biden's a liar. Kevin McCarthy's a liar. They're individuals. But when every politician and all the news media and both parties, you know, and all the establishments are liars, all the corporation, the social media, when you realize they're all liars, they're all part of a massive deception, that's something different. Individuals, sure, that's a bad apple. You know, if you're a Republican, oh, the Democrats are liars. Yeah, but the system's still good. If you're a Democrat, oh, the Republicans are liars. But the system's still good, right? Oh, you know, these group are, that group is, you know. But when you say it's a whole systemic issue and people are all liars and just, you know, telling lies on a daily basis, then you realize the whole thing's a lie and you can't believe any of it, right? You lose trust in the whole thing. And that's what eventually will happen. But, you know, there has to be things that the system shows weaknesses that it isn't showing right now. Lots of people are just like, as long as the system is strong, they're going to go along with the deception. They're going to self-deceive because they can't handle, you know, because they're 100% dependent on the system like we all are. There are a few more things to get to here. So my wife sent me this. Rapper Dan Sir, why, did this, why? The first rapper to have gold chains implanted into his head. So these gold chains are fused into his skull, you know, because he wants to have golden hair. Here he is, you know, rapping. I don't know what, maybe it's here that he raps. There's the gold hair in action, right? And so he seems to be not only somebody who's embedded gold chains into his head, he also seems to be some sort of mumble rapper, and the gold chains are in front of his mouth while he's talking. And so there's that, right? You know, he's the first to do it. In the meme it said, he's the first to do it, right? Because, you know, he's setting a trend. Powell's benign view on inflation is getting pushback at the Fed and elsewhere. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell's conviction that the inflation whipping through the economy this year soon will subside is not universally shared. Well, you know, it's basic economics. They've printed about $16 trillion in bailout money. And so, I mean, it's going to be like 16 at the end of the day. It's maybe like 12 now. But these bailouts, these COVID bailouts that are just cash grabs and things that are boosting the economy temporarily by pouring capital into a dying economy, they're going to add $12 trillion or $16 trillion at the end of it to the deficit, which is going to be at like $42 trillion. And then that's just the deficit. I've gone through the other stuff with the world debt clock. And so, you know, when you print money like that, you're going to have inflation. At some point, the dollar's going to be down, you know, double-digit percentile. It's going to be down in value by like 20, 30, 50% or whatever it is, substantial amount, where things will be, you know, twice as much as you used to pay for them, or a third as much. And so, you know, that's going to happen. Everybody knows it. No fewer than 5 Fed regional presidents have told CNBC it's time to pull back on the easy money policy, citing various levels of confidence in the economy tempered by worries of overinflation. All the extra costs that we get passed on to us, we have passed down to the customers, JKC trucking owner Mike Kurcharowski said. Yeah, so all these businesses are paying more money, like for materials. Because the way you can tell there's inflation is commodities. I mean, you start with gold and oil and things like that. Commodities are, you know, it costs more money for steel or whatever it is. You know, foods, I mean, things that are, you know, substantial, things, you know, that are material goods and services. And so those things start to cost more money. So whatever they produce is going to cost more money. And they've been holding inflation back a little bit artificially, but, you know, we all know that's coming. There's no way it can't come, right? It's no way it can't blow up in some way. So just a few more things to get to here. I'm not sure how this ended up on my toolbar. Sometimes I'm like, I don't remember this being here. Somebody might have sent this to me a while ago, or I don't know what it is. But it is Sex Education Season 3 on Netflix. And Netflix sucks. I would do a whole thing on the trailer. The trailer's really, it's just a sucky show. I watched about half of the trailer. But Netflix copyrights you because they suck. It's stupid for these media giants to copyright you when you're promoting their trailer. Because even if you're mocking it, it's getting the word out, right? But they just do that because Netflix sucks and their content sucks. And so I just want to show you the very beginning here.
That's right, Ames.
Thanks.
Who's this?
Hey, that's Steve.
No, Amy, the goat.
She means the goat. And so the goat is everywhere, right? Where's the goat? There it is. There's the goat, right? You know, they just have goats everywhere. You see goats everywhere. Even before the goats were, there was goats in like, there's a goat in Full House, and then there was a goat when they did a roast of Bob Saget. He came out with a goat and some hookers and an old one. It was really creepy stuff, right? And the goat now, the greatest of all time. So the goat is everywhere because they're just rolling out Baphomet. It's just, all this stuff. It's long past being interesting. But I just thought I'd show you that. And then one of my viewers sent this from Julian Assange in 2011.
Because the goal is not to completely subjugate Afghanistan. The goal is to use Afghanistan to wash money out of the tax bases of the United States, out of the tax bases of European countries, through Afghanistan and back into the hands of a transnational security elite. That is the goal, i.e. the goal is to have an endless war, not a successful war.
Well, obviously he's not wrong. Julian Assange and Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning were these three major whistleblowers who all were controlled, right? They were all a part of the story and narrative. They were supposed to leak out information. I mean, you look at what Snowden revealed in terms of information, and that should have been enough for people to get outraged about being spied upon, but they didn't because it's a pacified audience, right? And so what he said there about being an endless war and to launder money, of course, there was the opium industry there, all the rest of it. We don't have to go into that. I've talked about that a lot in recent videos. But he is, controlled opposition, but what he's saying there is true, doesn't matter. If everyone heard him say that, and everyone believed it, they still wouldn't do anything. Because I've said before, there's no resistance, at least towards information and changes that aren't substantial to, like, not having internet, not having food, basic necessities. When the lifestyle changes, and it will, there are going to be some people who are going to flip out. But it's not going to be the younger people. As long as the younger people have internet, they'll go right to the Agenda 31 housing. The younger people are buying in completely to whatever is being sold here. You could go back and read Brave New World. Brave New World is a more accurate description as a blueprint for what we see now. Brave New World is an old book. Everyone talks about George Orwell's 1984. But Aldous Huxley, who was a contemporary of George Orwell and Darwin, all these other players, right? They were all in like eugenic societies and other things. And this is a blueprint. You see it, being actualized now. And so there's no real resistance. People have been pacified. And there's no backup plan. A couple of generations ago, 3 generations ago, your grandparents had the ability to grow food and had the work ethic and the desire, the hunger, the fight in them, the fire in them to, do something different, go back to the old ways, even if they didn't want to, right? Go back to the old ways and throw off the debt-based economy, the scam debt-based economy, and go live in tribal villages. The family unit was still intact and things, but not now. People have no clue how to live any other way, right? I mean, that's all of us. And so there's no, there's no leverage there, right? Only going full mob, right? That's the only sort of recourse left. And that doesn't do anything, right? That's happened before. There's just this outpouring of anger and protests and riots and whatever. And then it just is put down or subsided. And then, it isn't going to touch the people making the decision. So there's no resistance to any of this. And the problem with the truth community, this probably applies to most of you, is that people in the truth community get focused on one issue at a time, couple issues at a time, and they just want to see justice done for that issue. They just want to see something, the system work for a change. And if this one issue can be resolved, whatever's current for them, people jump from one issue to another, just waiting. There's some hope here, and some right-wing people or politician, like a Rand Paul or a Tucker Carlson or somebody, or somebody in the truth community gives them some hope, right? I mean, you saw this with, there's these celebrities that become truthers or semi-celebrities. Roseanne did it for a while, and people are like, oh my God, Roseanne's a truther, right? And they slather all over the people because deep down no matter how much they complain about Hollywood, they think the people in Hollywood are better than them, right? And they have some desire to be validated by celebrities. I mean, that's what happened. Remember that guy, Isaac Cappy? Isaac Cappy was like a third-tier celebrity, right? Not even a B celebrity. Hey, he's in the Thor movie, right? And he started to say truther stuff, but it wasn't backed by evidence, or he was just telling people what they wanted to hear. He loved the attention, and he was like holding court on the internet, and he was a disaster for the truth community. He was just, saying things that were, weren't based in fact, and were just, it was about another person making everybody look crazy. But the truth community made him a celebrity within the truth community so quickly. I was like, well, you really, that guy, some homeless MNFer who knew a few celebrities, right? Who hung out with some celebrities and was in a few movies. And people were like going nuts, like he was validating their beliefs. And that's how desperate people are in the truth community, to be validated and have people just, some authority figure just admit to, a couple of the things, not even in a wholesale way. That's why Trump, who wasn't a truther either, but he saw, he was advised by various people to go after the truth community and use them as a demographic, actualize them, of course, the QBs and all the rest of it. And so the problem here is there is no resistance because the system is either on or it's off. Like, it can't be made non-deceptive. You can't fill the void of $2 quadrillion worth of debt and the lies that prop it up, right? Remember, feeding on lies. This system is deceptive in its nature, and it needs lies and disinformation to keep on going. It's just that we're starting to realize that. It's been like this for a very long time, right? Hundreds of years. The whole Kali Yuga is made up of deception, right? It's made up of emotions that are lower scale emotions, playing on people's emotions, fear most of all, and it can't be made truthful. That's why when you're truly seeking the truth, it's very uncomfortable being in this system. If you're seeking justice, you're seeking the system to work and be fair. The system always rewards the liars and the sociopaths. You haven't noticed that, right? Nobody ever gets really consequence. Once in a while they serve somebody up just to appease the masses, but they don't even do that anymore. I mean, even like a Harvey Weinstein or something, right? And so Bernie Madoff, I don't know. And so once in a while they pretend to serve somebody up, but there's no consequences for bad behavior. Bad behavior is what makes the system go away from God, go away from what's natural, go away from what's wholesome and innocent, the best of what humans could be, our souls, our spiritual potential. And so the system isn't, it's just a bad system. There's no fixing it, and there's no truth. There's no, there's no principle anymore. There's no anything. You just have to get through it as best you can, and at some point it's going to shift, and then it's going to get sucky on a material level. So you'll have to, connect to God, like I said, internally, and you have to be a part of the future. That's what Pockets of the Future means. You have to start living now as God wants everyone to live in the future. There is going to be something that emerges, something better that emerges from the abyss of this, the debauchery of this system. Something better is going to come out of it. And you have to start help creating that and manifesting it. That's what the Heartfulness system is all about. A collective consciousness, raising people's vibration and consciousness to a higher level and manifesting something better in the future. And not everyone's going to make the cut, right? There's going to be a massive die-off of people. It might be down to 1 billion or even less, right? So that's 1 out of 7 people is going to make it, right? In terms of the available slots of human beings for souls to come back in, right? Souls have to go somewhere from here. And what you've been told by your religion is so simplistic and, not really accurate at all in terms of going to hell or heaven or whatever your religion or what you've heard about the afterlife. Very few souls have made it out of planet Earth yet, have graduated from planet Earth. I mean, it's just a handful, like, maybe 1,000, I don't know. Like, I have no way of saying it. But you have to reach a certain level. You have to master yourself to a certain level to be liberated for planet Earth. And so most people have to come back in some capacity. And if there isn't enough human slots, then, where do they go from there? And so it's just, people are competing for a small number of future spots here if they don't reach the level of liberation. Right now there's about 80 or 90 million people per year, depending on, the population growth, but around 80 million every year, more people than there was the year before. And so there's all these open slots for people who are dying to come back and for animals to come up from a higher level or souls, negative souls or whatever from other places. And there's no restrictions because there's all these spots that have to be filled by souls, right? There's babies being born. And so there's just this influx of soul energy in the human condition. And all those souls, most of them are either very immature, they're not very developed, or they're, negative or something. They're, they've gone to the dark side. And so when that's reduced, all these negative souls or all these newbies aren't going to be able to come back and only be people who are willing and able to cooperate with the, the future, the future plan, the way God is, mapping it out, why the higher developed beings are mapping it out for humanity. And that's what people are really, competing for right now. Not in a sense of competition, but, just moving forward and being a part of God's plan. And if you do that, there's a place for you in the future. Otherwise, who knows where you end up, right? But if it's not a crappy, almost an uninhabitable planet, right, that's going to be a lot worse than it is now, and it's not great now. I mean, spiritually, it's a huge opportunity. I'm not saying that there isn't good things about it. But materially, it's going to be tough. And, I think most people get a sense of that. And so, in terms of whatever, pursuing the truth, I mean, you're not going to make some sense out of why the system is the way it is. You're not going to find one specific group that you can blame. It's everybody. It's, it's not one demographic. It's not, one set of wealthy, controlling people. Everybody's contributed to this. It's just a bad system. Like when there's a, end of a marriage or end of a friendship and relationship where, it's just a bad ending. A bad ending to like a business partnership or somebody in your family, that there's just going to be this end to the relationship. Like you're just never going to get along again. Like something's been done that's, I don't want to say unforgivable, but something that just the damage really can't be repaired. And especially with like a bad divorce, you just got to cut your losses and move on. The person's never going to give you what you want. They didn't do that when you were married to them, right? They didn't do that when you were with them. And now that you're like enemies, then, they're not giving you something they didn't give you when they had every reason to give it to you, when you were married, right? They're not going to validate you. They're not going to tell you were right. They're not going to, so, somebody gets into a 12-step program and they get to, I guess, is it step 7 where they have to make amends or something like that, but that's a rare situation. And usually it's, artificial in nature. And so if somebody's wronged you, like just waiting for them to get their just desserts, right? Just, in terms of Joe Biden or for Democrats, Trump, waiting for, Hillary Clinton to go to jail. Yeah, it's stupid. It's false gold. Why? The system's collapsing. You have so much energy and time left, and you need to figure out what you need to do to move through the next stage or phase. The system's collapsing, and so trying to, see some justice or truth happen in a a system that's built on lies is just, again, fool's gold. It's time to, find a positive way to use your energy. I've talked about the heartfulness system, connecting to God, and then figure out, your particular path forward on a material level to success, and, finding the people that, community and things like this in the future. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paramano, definitely important from the Apocalaughs and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.